Mr. Anton Petrov's day always began before dawn. The narrow alley outside Clip and Curl Barber's was still cloaked in shadow when he slipped through the weathered iron door at 5:30 a.m. The shop smelled of warming mahogany, cedarwood shavings, and a faint trace of talcum powder, a comforting scent he'd come to associate with centuries of family tradition. His reflection in the antique mirror framed by ornate scrollwork greeted him, iron-gray hair neatly combed back, wire-rimmed glasses perched at the bridge of his nose, and a barber's coat as crisply starched as the day before. He moved methodically, testing the blade of each straight razor, buffing the polished wood of his chair arms, and arranging the scissors and clippers on the brass-lined countertop. At the very center of the display lay his most treasured tools, two heirloom silver combs, each engraved with his grandfather's initials. The combs were not only gifts but symbols of a legacy passed father to son through 4 generations of Petrov barbers, each comb bearing the faint patina of 1,000 careful strokes. With a small brass key, he unlocked the glass-fronted cabinet and plucked the combs from their velvet cradle. In the soft lamplight, their surfaces gleamed, one slender and evenly toothed for precise styling, the other wide-toothed for detangling coarse hair. Anton ran his thumb along the delicate engravings, flourishes that evoked a bygone era when his grandfather had tutored young Anton in the art of a perfect fade. He placed them carefully on a red velvet mat at the front of the counter and stood back to admire their symmetry before preparing for his first client. At exactly 6 a.m., the shop's single overhead lamp flickered on. Anton reached out to tap a small bronze bell on the counter, signaling the start of business. But when his fingernail brushed the velvet, his fingers met empty space. He frowned, leaning closer. The combs had vanished. A chill raced down his spine. He lifted the glass door silent, showing no sign of forced entry, and found only a single black feather, glossy as polished obsidian, nestled among stray hairs on the velvet mat. Healed scars from childhood taunts over his Russian accent pricked his mind. People often dismissed his stories as old-world superstition. Yet here, in the pre-dawn hush, the lone feather spoke a language he recognized, a message that something clever and cunning had visited his shop in the darkness. Anton's heart pounded as he closed his eyes, recalling the gentle clink of metal yesterday evening as he placed the combs back into their case. He ran a hand through his hair in frustration and then lifted the feather between 2 careful fingers. Its barbs were pristine, no signs of blood or wear, yet its origin was unmistakable. He pressed the feather to his cheek, eyes narrowing in determination. By 6:15 a.m., Anton had swept the floor, inventoried every tool, and questioned the solitary early morning client, old Mrs. Delgado, who swore she'd arrived too late last night to see anyone depart. He checked the back door latch, secure. He peered into the narrow alley out front, empty. And all the while, the feather lay heavy on the counter, a silent dare. As the first customers began to trickle in, Anton met them with professional calm, but his mind raced. Who or what could have lifted 2 of the most secure items in the shop without waking a soul? And why leave a feather as a calling card? He concealed the feather in his pocket and resolved in that instant, he would not rest until he recovered his grandfather's combs, down to the very last tine, even if it meant confronting a thief with wings. That afternoon, Anton Petrov closed Clip and Curl Barbers for his brief lunch break, but the shop door remained unlocked, an intentional lure. Clutching the glossy black feather between forefinger and thumb, he climbed the narrow back staircase to the flat roof above the alley. The sun was high and hot, casting sharp shadows across the weathered tar paper and the rusted metal vents. He carried a battered leather satchel containing 2 decoy combs, base metal painted silver, a small camera, and a handful of sunflower seeds, his nascent plan to draw out the thief. At precisely 2:47 p.m., the city's mid-afternoon din reached its morning peak, honking taxis, street musicians drifting from open windows, and the distant hum of construction. Anton settled behind a low brick parapet, arranging the decoys beneath a loose slate tile by the rooftop's edge. He carefully angled the camera's lens through a crack in the masonry, framing the tile's slight lift and the nearby perch of a broken chimney. His heart thumped as he clicked the camera's activation button. Now, he only needed patience. Minutes passed in silent anticipation. The sun climbed higher, reflecting off the silver-painted combs in a muted glint. The heat radiated from the rooftop, rippling the summer air. Suddenly, out of a clear blue sky, a sleek black form descended. Anton's breath caught as the culprit, an ebony-feathered crow with iridescent hints of blue and violet, landed with surprising grace on the masonry next to the stolen decoys. The bird cocked its head, one sharp eye glinting like midnight steel as it surveyed the tempting objects. Anton watched, heart in his throat, as the crow hopped forward, its talons clicking on the tile. It leaned down and plucked the thinner comb in its beak, lifting it effortlessly. The crow's black feathers shimmered in the sunlight, each barb reflecting a subtle sheen of purple. Holding the comb between its mandibles, it hopped once more, eyes flicking toward the broken chimney, a clear escape route. Anton rose silently to his feet, every muscle tensing with a mixture of triumph and adrenaline. He crept along the parapet, careful to keep the low wall between them, and gained 10 more feet. The crow, alerted by a faint scuff, turned its head. Its jet black eye met Anton's human and avian distrust, bridging the gap between species. Then, without hesitation, the crow beat its glossy wings once and launched into the air, comb clutched tightly. Anton ducked behind the brick wall as the crow wheeled above, dipping and ascending in a taunting aerial dance. The bird's flight path led toward the adjacent building, whose corrugated roof sloped down toward a narrow side street. With a muttered oath, Anton scrambled up to the camera and checked the playback, a crystal-clear image of the crow and its prize, the exact moment of theft frozen in time. He patted his satchel, ensuring the unused comb remained safe, and allowed himself a determined smile. He now knew his adversary by sight and knew how it stole, bold, swift, and clever. As the city's clamorous rhythm pulsed around him, Anton vowed quietly, "Tomorrow, we negotiate." With the evidence secured and his resolve steeled, he descended the stairs, ready to turn the tables on the most cunning robber he'd ever encountered. The city's midday heat beat down on Anton's back as he burst onto the next rooftop, comb in hand, sprinting after the taunting caw of the crow high above. His lungs burned and sweat stung his eyes, but adrenaline lent him agility. Tiles cracked under his boots as he vaulted over a low chimney stack and skidded across a sloping sheet of corrugated metal toward a narrow alley below. The crow's silhouette dipped and rose, leading Anton across 3 contiguous rooftops, each with its own dangers. On the second roof, a gap spanned nearly 8 feet between Anton's ledge and the next building's deck. Below, discarded laundry hung from clotheslines, snapping like flags in the wind. The crow alighted on the far edge, comb clenched securely in its beak, watching Anton's approach with bright, mocking eyes. Anton hesitated only a moment, then sprinted and leapt. His heart froze in his throat as he soared, arms outstretched, praying the leather soles would grip the opposite surface. He landed with a jarring impact, knees buckling as fresh cracks spiderwebbed across the brittle terracotta tiles beneath him. He tumbled forward but caught himself on a rusted gutter pipe, scraping his palms, and scrambled upright, comb still in hand, but his prize on the verge of slipping away once more. Before he could steady himself, the crow rose in a gust of wings, dropping the comb as it ascended. The silver tine spun through the air, hitting a tile with a sharp clink and sliding toward the gutter's edge. Without thinking, Anton lunged, fingers brushing the comb's cool metal before it teetered over the roof slip. With a frantic tug, he reclaimed it, heart pounding so fiercely he could feel each pulse in his fingertips. The crow circled back, squawking indignantly, and settled atop a towering water tank at the center of the complex. Its sleek black form was backlit by the sun, wings outstretched like a dark flag. Anton pressed comb to his chest for a moment of triumph until he realized the crow was still airborne, and his true challenge had only just begun. Drawing in a ragged breath, Anton closed the distance to the water tank by scrambling up a precarious series of pipes and vents. The metal rattled under his weight, each step urging him higher, closer to the perched thief. Sweat dripped into his eyes as he reached the tank's rim, wobbling on a narrow ledge barely a foot wide. The crow hopped to the tank's highest edge, comb clenched still, daring him to reach out. Anton extended an arm, comb held tight in his other hand, and edged forward. Below him, the alley looked impossibly far away, just a narrow sliver of pavement between brick walls. The wind gusted, and he fought the urge to pull back. Then, with one final heave, he snatched at the crow's tail feathers. The bird leapt into the air, its feathers scattering in a silent black rain as comb and feather tumbled to the rooftop below. Anton collapsed onto the tiles, gasping for breath. He clutched the silver comb a hair's breadth from vanishing entirely and watched the crow wheel overhead, its sharp cry echoing off the concrete canyons. Though victorious in recovering one comb, he knew this was far from over. The thief was cunning, and the best battles often demanded a change of tactics. Panting, he rose and brushed gravel from his clothes, comb gleaming in his palm. As the crow caught in defiance overhead, Anton squared his shoulders, ready for whatever came next. The rooftop arena had tested his limits, but he had proven one thing: no bird and no thief could outmatch his determination to reclaim what was rightfully his. Of the morning after his daring rooftop chase, Anton woke before dawn, muscles still aching from the pursuit but mind alight with a new plan. Brushing gravel from his jacket, he gathered supplies: a small canvas pouch of sunflower seeds, crushed almonds, he'd read crows possess a sweet tooth for nuts, and a single decoy comb, this one lighter than his heirlooms but painted convincingly silver. He clipped his satchel to his belt and climbed the narrow fire escape to the shop's roof under the pale watercolor sky of sunrise. At precisely 6:30 a.m., when the city streets hummed softly with early commuters, Anton arranged his bait. He scattered the sunflower and almond mix in a neat semicircle around the loose slate tile where the crow had first stolen. In the center, he placed the decoy comb, its painted tines catching the dawn's rose-gold light. Anton retreated behind the low parapet wall, heart-thumping, and set his camera on a small tripod, ready to record the encounter. For long minutes, nothing stirred except the whisper of a distant tram bell and the soft clink of morning dew slipping from a chimney cap. Then, as the sun crested a nearby rooftop, Anton saw movement, a flash of jet-black wings above the adjoining building. The crow descended in 3 graceful flaps, talons outstretched, before landing with perfect balance on the edge of the slate. Its bright eye, luminous and unblinking, scanned the offerings. Anton froze, breath held. The crow hopped forward, delicately probing the seed and nut mixture with its beak. After a few tentative pecks, it embraced the feast, cracking almonds between its strong bill. With each nut consumed, the crow's confidence grew until, finally, it stepped toward the comb at the center. Anton's pulse quickened. This was his moment. He rose slowly, leaning over the parapet so only his forearms and the camera lens were visible. "I know you took what wasn't yours," he began, voice low and respectful, "but I've learned you value shiny things as much as I do." The crow paused, one head tilt betraying interest. Anton extended a flat palm, the seeds now gathered there, and set the decoy comb on the wall's wide ledge beside him. "Here's a trade, these seeds, fresh every morning, in exchange for the real combs," he offered, tone even. The crow watched, its glossy feathers ruffling in the breeze. With one leg raised and the other planted firmly, it balanced for a heartbeat, then hopped sideways, nudging the lighter comb with its beak once, twice, before picking it up. Clutching the decoy in its mandibles, it fluttered into the air, only to land again on the opposite chimney stack. Anton didn't pursue. Instead, he waited as the bird placed the fake comb carefully on the brickwork, dropped a single silver tine from beneath its wing, and hopped closer. The real comb lay on the ledge, waiting. With a graceful tilt, the crow pushed the genuine comb forward with its beak until it teetered over the edge. It fell into Anton's outstretched hand with a soft clatter. As the crow pecked at the last seeds in Anton's palm, the barber gently replaced the return combs into his satchel. He whispered, "Thank you," laying a final handful of seeds on the rooftop as a gesture of goodwill. The crow gave one triumphant caw, flapped its wings, and soared away, leaving behind 2 restored silver combs and the start of an unexpected partnership. From that day on, Anton kept a daily ritual: first light on the rooftop, fresh sunflower seeds and nuts, and a mutual respect between man and crow. The feathered thief had become his most punctual ally, proof that sometimes negotiation triumphs over conflict, and even the cleverest bandit can be won over with understanding and a simple trade. Word of Anton's unusual rooftop alliance spread through the neighborhood faster than the scent of fresh hair tonic. By mid-morning, a small crowd gathered on the sidewalk outside Clip and Curl Barbers, craning their necks up at the shop's flat roof. Children pressed their noses against the display window, eyes wide with excitement. Elderly patrons, who once shuffled in quietly for a haircut, now arrived early, clutching seed packets and tin cups of cracked corn. The barber's bench, once a silent stage for fading strobes and the gentle hum of clippers, became the center of a blossoming community ritual. Inside, Anton prepared for the day's first client, Mrs. Delgado, the kindly pensioner who still preferred a traditional taper, but even she paused mid-cut to glance up. Through the antique mirror's gleam, she saw a sleek black silhouette land on the rooftop perch Anton had installed beside a decorative barber pole. The crow assistant, as the neighbors had christened it, hopped gracefully to the edge where a small dish of sunflower seeds sat waiting. There was a collective gasp, followed by applause and delighted laughter as the crow bowed its head, then plucked a comb, this time one of the heirloom silver pieces, from its velvet display, carrying it aloft before gently returning it to Anton's outstretched hand. Over the following weeks, clip and curl transformed into a living folk tale. Anton mounted a small glass case above the counter to exhibit the recovered combs alongside a glossy feather and a photograph of the crow in mid-flight. Below, he fashioned a crow feed station, a brass dish engraved with the words, "For our clever friend." He taught curious customers about corvid intelligence and the importance of respect and patience. Soon, local artists donated watercolor sketches of the crow, and a children's writer used the story as the basis for a free Saturday barbershop tales session, where kids gathered to draw the story while getting play hair trims. Even the city press caught wind of the unlikely partnership. A newspaper reporter posed on the rooftop for a feature photograph, capturing Anton in his crisp barber's coat holding the crow gently on his forearm. The headline read, "Barber and Bird, a tale of trust, trade, and two-way respect." The story highlighted how a simple act of understanding, offering seeds in exchange for stolen combs, had forged a bridge between species and brought a disparate community together. Patronage at Clip and Curl grew as neighbors came not just for haircuts, but for a chance to witness the curious bond firsthand. As autumn dusk settled one evening, Anton secured the shop's shutters and climbed the fire escape with a fresh pouch of sunflower seeds. Beneath the warm glow of the rooftop lamp, the city's skyline stretched in a tapestry of twinkling lights. The crow descended, landing lightly on the engraved feed station. Anton smiled, heart full, and placed both heirloom combs back into their velvet cradle beside the seed dish, a daily act of gratitude. In that shared ritual of giving and receiving, the crow's clever theft had blossomed into an enduring friendship, proof that even the most unlikely encounters can leave a lasting mark. And high above the city streets, amid the soft scrape of combs and the gentle caw of a grateful bird, a barber and his feathered companion wrote a new chapter in their legend, one that would take flight again and again, carried on the wings of curiosity, kindness, and respect.